Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to do the picks for the third and final week of the June Joust qualifiers. This weekend we will have 4 days of matches, 3 days finishing off the qualifiers, and then on Sunday we have the first of the knockout matches, the top 4 from APAC, the top 6 from North America. So those will be shared on Twitter if you're curious about what I pick. Usually I put those on Twitter so everybody can have a look at who I think will be the teams to advance, but today we are going to focus solely on the regular season matches. Now this is an interesting week because this is the first time in over a year that we have home stands back in the Overwatch League. Yes, you heard me correctly. Home stands are back this weekend. In Hangzhou, China, there is a homestand. So if you are a Chinese fan, you live in China and you are watching my videos, I don't know why you're a fan of me if you're in China, because I speak English, and I don't think many of you speak a lot of English fluently, but who knows, maybe you do. If you are somebody who has the chance to go to the homestand in Hangzhou, go enjoy yourselves, have a good time, hope you all have fun. But here in the West, we still have no homestands. So hopefully sooner rather than later, we will get homestands again. But that is where we are at. So I'm going to break this down. The picks will be a little bit weirder this time around than they normally are. I'm going to start with North America, get through the 3 days worth of North America matches. And then I will do the APAC matches last. I will do those afterwards. So just so you know, that is how I am doing it. Just for the homestands this week. And it'll make sense when you see the actual format of my picks. So let's jump in and start with the online matches. On Thursday, we open up with the Boston Uprising taking on the Paris Eternal. Now, I actually think this one has the makings to be a pretty good series. I actually think that these are two teams who are looking pretty good right now. Obviously, the Paris Eternal, big win against the Washington Justice 2 weeks ago. Was a good win for them to actually get a win against a good team. They also lost as well to, I believe it was the Mayhem who they lost to. But this is a good Eternal team. They've looked pretty good. But the Uprising look really good. They're 2-0, +6, have not dropped a single map yet in the June Joust. I think this should be a series that's pretty close. I actually think both of these teams have shown a lot of potential and a lot of promise. But I ultimately think that the team that I would expect to do well in this one is the Boston Uprising. They've looked better. I think the addition of Gable Shi has been very, very good for this team. Being able to come completely in Korean certainly looks like it's helping this team out a ton. I think they have shown that they are a talented roster. I still think they need to get another DPS player because I think that they need to be putting someone who is more skilled on Tracer on that role. But with Tracer not in the hero pool, I think this really helps the Boston Uprising. I think they look pretty good. And I think this is a game that they should be able to take with ease. The second match on Thursday is actually my first big pick match of the week. It is the Dallas Fuel taking on the Florida Mayhem. These two teams both made the Hawaii tournament for May Melee. They both went to Hawaii for May Melee. That's more of what I wanted to say. But we haven't seen them play yet. They didn't play when they met, or when they both made it to Hawaii. So this will be an interesting one. I don't really know how close I think it'll be. This is a weird one to me because I don't think either of these teams love this hero pool. The Mayhem can still play, or both teams really can still play the Winston comps if they so choose. And this is the type of matchup where I think it's very possible that we see Winston comps coming out of both teams. Because neither team is going to be super comfortable playing the double shield. And if you know the other team's not going to play the double shield, why would you play the double shield yourself? You're not going to win playing double shield most likely if you're either team. So that's why I think the series could be pretty good. I think both those teams will run the compositions they feel more comfortable on. And we all know Winston compositions are the more comfortable of the two for both these teams. I think it could be pretty close. I think the Mayhem are better at double shield than the Fuel are. So I could see them trying to run it because of that. But I ultimately think the Fuel are too good. The Fuel are a very talented team. They may not be the best in this meta. This may be a meta that's not great for them. But I do like them as a team. I think they're still strong, and I think they should still be the favorites to take this series against the Mayhem. That's not a bash against the Mayhem, really. I just really like what we have seen from the Fuel so far, and I think that they should be able to beat the Mayhem. Moving on to Friday, the Boston Uprising take on the LA Gladiators. This is a series I actually think could be pretty good. The Boston Uprising, like I said, are 2-0 so far. They look really good in this stage. The LA Gladiators are also doing very well in this stage, sitting at 2-0 plus 5. The Uprising at 2-0 plus 6. So very good chance these will be two teams aiming for an undefeated stage when they meet in this match. So almost a big pick type of game. I didn't quite pick it as one because the game later on that I think is actually really, really tough to pick. This is the one that I think could be a pretty good series, like I said, but I think the LA Gladiators have the edge. I think they just have more talent, and I feel more that they have the better depth, right? Even if it's just Kevster and Birdring playing, I feel a lot more confident in the hero pools that those two particular players can run than I do in Valentine and I'm 37. And I think the Gladiators' tank line is stronger. I think that Muse has gotten better as the season has progressed. He definitely looks a lot better in June than he did back in May. And I think that one of the bigger things is the support line. The support line for the LA Gladiators is really, really good. Skewed is looking really good on the Brig. And I think anytime you run a Brig composition, you're going to have a really good performance out of Skewed. And so for me, it really comes down to these kind of compositional choices that we've seen. A lot of these teams have run a lot of the same stuff. It's been all double shield and dive tanks. And I think the Gladiators are good at both of those things. I think Stand 1 is a good main tank. I don't think he's a great main tank. And so it really comes down to just what the pieces around you are able to do. I think the Gladiators are better. I think they've looked more solid. I think they have better leadership and better talent on this roster. And so I think this one could be a pretty good and pretty close match. I think the Gladiators take the edge in this one because they do look very, very good. Next is the San Francisco Shock taking on the Vancouver Titans. Once upon a time, this would have been one of the greatest matchups in the Overwatch League. Now it is a laughingstock, as the Vancouver Titans are one of the biggest jokes in the Overwatch League. They have not looked good at all in the June Joust. They looked okay in the May Melee. They had some good moments at times, but now they really just don't look good at all. They look lost. Chungsik did not really bring that kind of energy that maybe people had hoped he would when he joined this roster, and so you're left with a team that is pretty bad against a team that looks to be on the up. Very, very, very good chance that the Shock go this stage undefeated. There's a good chance that there's two teams that are undefeated this stage, either the Gladiators or the Uprising, and then the Shock. And so I think that these are the two teams that I'm looking at right now as potentially the top two in the region. Feel very good about them going into this tournament. And I think that the Shock should have no problems taking on a very weak Titans team that just has not shown anything yet this month. Final match for North America on Friday is the Florida Mayhem taking on the Washington Justice. Now, when these two teams met back in the May Melee, I was surprised when the Florida Mayhem took the victory. I thought the Washington Justice were looking very good in the May Melee, but things did not go their way, and we've seen them really have a tough go at things in the June Joust. They've looked very slow. They have not looked very motivated to really make big plays and have good performances. It's been a really big struggle to watch this team play, and it was something I kind of overlooked a lot early in the season. I just thought it was the type of like growing pains they were having. They'll get better, but they haven't really shown that. And so for me, it's hard to pick Washington based on what I've seen. I don't think Washington's going to be as bad as what they were over the past several weeks. I think they are going to bounce back, and I think they're going to have a great performance in the second half of the season. I think they just kind of needed to take some time to really kind of look at what they were doing, look at their approach to playing so far. I think they got a little too comfortable with how they were performing and didn't really look at the flaws that they were really kind of struggling from. And so I think this is a team that should be better going forward, but it's hard for me right now based on what I saw for the past couple of weeks to pick the Justice over the Mayhem. Mayhem just look better right now. They beat them when I thought the Justice were playing at their best so far. And so I think that realistically with this Justice team that does not seem to be too hot right now, I have to take the Mayhem for this one. Moving on to Saturday, the Paris Eternal are taking on the LA Gladiators. This is an easy one for me. As much as I think the Eternal have looked better this stage, I don't think they are better than the LA Gladiators. The Gladiators, I think, are arguably a top 2 team in NA. I've said it already once. They look good. They beat the Reign. They might be coming off a win against a good Boston team. So I think this is a Gladiators team that really is starting to hit that potential that we thought they had at the beginning of the season, that they kind of failed to meet early on when they had 2 tough matches against the Shock and the Fuel. They've changed a lot since then. They've gotten a lot better since those 2 matches. And so I really do think the Gladiators should be considered one of the favorites in this tournament right now. And I think they should beat the Eternal. Maybe not with 100% ease, but I don't think it'll be the biggest challenge. Next, Vancouver Titans take on the Dallas Fuel. This one should be pretty one-sided. Dallas Fuel are a better team. Titans look lost. Easy win for the Fuel. Not going to elaborate much more than that. Final NA match for the week is the San Francisco Shock taking on the Washington Justice. Same thing basically for the Mayhem, though the Shock are the better team than the Mayhem anyway. So even if the Justice were at 100%, I still think the Shock would be favored to win this match. I still think they look better. I still think they're the more solid team. But I need to see the Justice bounce back a bit, right? If they can beat the Mayhem, I feel pretty good, right? If they lose both of their games, they go from having a 4-0 stage in the first tournament to an 0-4 stage, right? And that's a huge drop-off, right? That can get hard to build back from. Now, it's better to have those 4 wins and those 4 points where that can really help you, just having those points is very helpful for later in the season when there's going to be teams like the Eternal that probably won't have 4 points by the time that we get to the end of the June Joust, right? Like, there's going to be some teams that don't even have 4 points. But I don't think 4 points is going to be enough to really give you the kind of push that you're looking for if you're the Justice to make a deep run. So they need to get a win here. I think it's really important, but it'll be a very tough week for them. It's not all doom and gloom if they don't get any wins. If they look really bad, then it is a problem. But if they're competitive with the Mayhem and competitive with the Shock, these are 2 teams that the Justice can beat, right? They have a talented roster. Decay and Fury and Mag and Assassin have all looked incredible so far this season. I think Bebe's been good. I don't think he's been the best. I think Closer has been fine. Like, I don't think there's a problem in terms of like the way that the individuals are playing. I think it's a team problem. They have not looked great as a team, and that is their biggest problem. So I think if they can get some stuff together this week, if they can get a win over the Justice or a win over the Mayhem or the Shock, it'd be good for them. I don't expect it to happen, but this is a huge week for them. They need to start looking a lot better, or else they are going to slip down those rankings faster than they would like to. Let's go now do the APAC matches. We got 2 days worth of matches, Friday and Saturday. Starting with Friday, we have the Guangzhou Charge taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. The Guangzhou Charge, of course, will be at the homestand, so they'll be able to play on stage, while the Fusion will be playing online. So it won't be quite as exciting as what we could get, but it is better than nothing. This one's a tough one for me to pick. I don't think the Fusion have looked particularly good so far, but I don't expect them to look as bad as they did in week 1 of the June Joust qualifiers. The Guangzhou Charge are a team that I still can't quite place. I haven't watched enough of the Charge to really pinpoint how good they are. And so, for me, I think that the Fusion should win this one. Like if I ignore how bad Fusion were last weekend, or 2 weekends ago now, the Fusion should win, right? Like, they should be the better team. They didn't look good before, but I don't know if they're going to have that poor of a performance again. So I don't really know what to think and what to make of this series. This is a tough one for me. I'm going to pick the Fusion. I don't feel confident in this pick. I don't feel confident in a lot of the APAC picks this week. It is close in APAC. It is weird in APAC. But I'm going to take the Fusion because I think they've just looked better at their peak than the Charge have so far. Even if the Fusion have arguably not been at that peak in a long time, when they were playing their peak at the beginning of the season, I thought they looked very strong. Arguably, at the point in time, the best team in the Overwatch League. Next, the Chengdu Hunters take on the Seoul Dynasty. This one, I think, will be close again. I don't feel super confident in my pick for this one. I'm picking the Seoul Dynasty, but I don't feel the most confident in it. I don't think Chengdu have looked great in this meta. They're 1-1, which isn't bad. They're 1-1 -1. I believe they got swept by Shanghai and they beat the Fusion 3-1. It's just such a tough team to place. I don't really know what to make of the Hunters or the Dynasty. The Dynasty at least have gotten, a win on the board over the NYXL. They lost to Shanghai, but it was a decent series. Seoul's running weird stuff, so I don't know if it'll be good or bad against Chengdu. It's tough to say for sure, but I just feel a little bit more confident in the Seoul Dynasty right now, based on what I've seen recently, than I do the Chengdu Hunters. So I'm putting the Seoul Dynasty here with the win. Then the final Friday match is the only match between two teams that should, in theory, take place in person, based on what I think is going to work with this homestand. That is the LA Valiant taking on the Hangzhou Spark. I don't think this one will be very close. I think the Hangzhou Spark are the better team. They arguably are the best team in APAC right now. They had a great weekend, the first weekend of the June Joust qualifiers, beating the Shanghai Dragons 3-0, getting a big win as well over, I want to say it was Guangzhou 3-1. So, very good team in the Hangzhou Spark so far. Shai has looked incredible. He's really been kind of the key to the success for the Hangzhou Spark. So, I think this is a win for the Spark. I don't think it should be very hard. The Valiant are, as we all know, looking like one of the worst teams in the Overwatch League. So, the Spark should take this one pretty easily in front of their home crowd. Moving on to Saturday, LA Valiant take on the Philadelphia Fusion. This one to me is a no-brainer. The Philadelphia Fusion take this one. Valiant are bad. It's embarrassingly bad at times. And so for me, Fusion take this one probably in a pretty dominant fashion. 3-0, maybe a 3-1, but I don't think the Valiant have taken a map since the very first match of the season for them. So I would expect it to be a 3-0. Next is another match I really don't know how to feel about. It's confusing and it's difficult to place. It is the Guangzhou Charge against the Seoul Dynasty. I don't know where either of these teams are at right now. APAC is a disaster. Too many teams have not played enough matches for me to be able to figure it out. And so I don't know what to do. I'm going to pick the Seoul Dynasty for this one because I think they're the better team. I think they have looked better more consistently. They're running weird stuff, and I think that it could bite them in the butt. But at the end of the day, I think they've looked better right now. And so I'm going to go with them. Final match of the weekend was my final big pick game. I wanted to give the Hangzhou crowd a big pick match. And you know what? I think this one might actually be pretty good. It's the Chengdu Hunters against the Hangzhou Spark. I think this one really has the potential to go either way. I feel very confident in the Spark pick, right? A lot of my big pick games are ones that I think are hard to pick. I don't think it's hard to pick the Spark. I think the Spark should win. And I think the Spark should win on pretty much everybody's picks. But Chengdu is just that team. We haven't seen them in a couple of weeks. I don't really remember how good they looked because I didn't watch their game against Philadelphia from 2 weeks ago. So I don't remember if they looked good or not. And so I'm kind of expecting to be surprised by Chengdu this weekend, just because I'm always surprised by Chengdu somehow. So I think this is a good Hunters team against a good Spark team. I think this should be a good series, but I am going to go the way of the Spark. I think the home crowd could make a big difference. Not guaranteed, but I think it could make a big difference. And so I'm excited for this match to kick off and to see some home fans in Hangzhou for this week. So let's throw up my overall picks. You can take a look at them. There they are. You can see I got my all 9 matches on the left, Hangzhou homestand matches on the right. I'll go back to the normal way it was for next week, but for now I just have it like this. Playoffs are going to be interesting. If I recall correctly, the only teams that have guaranteed themselves spots so far are the Shanghai Dragons, the Atlanta Reign, and Houston Outlaws. I think those teams are all locked in. I could be wrong, but I think they are locked in to be in the tournament. So we will see what happens. Like I said, I could be wrong. There's a chance that one of these teams isn't locked in, and I thought they were. So, I mean, who knows at this point in time? But it's been fun to look at. So, yeah. Those are the picks for this week. Like I said, if you're interested in seeing who I pick for the matches on Sunday, I try to tweet those out, Saturday for the APAC matches, and then Sunday morning probably for the NA matches. So I'll try to get those out to you, but we'll see what happens. For now, though, that's all for me. So comment down below your thoughts on anything that I picked today, anything that I talked about. Let me know how you feel about it. And if you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. That is all from me, though. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.